I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. My title today is WW2ruth Liberation Day, and I'm spelling that WW2ruth, by which I mean both world wars, because really they were just one with a continuation. Thank you to Miss Bejan, who way back in March wrote to me with the idea for a declaration on this day of the 80th anniversary. However, I thought that it would be easier to train cats to do synchronized swimming than it would be to get World War truthers to all agree on one declaration. So I'm putting together today a compilation of all my work on this topic, and I am hoping others will be doing the same. I'm declaring this World War Truth Liberation Year because after 80 years, everyone who fought in this war, like my dad, would be 100 years old if they were still living. And it's time for us to bring out all the puzzle pieces because it is a big puzzle and no clue should be off limits. I've realized that to understand the world wars and put them in context, you have to go through everything in this 10,000-piece puzzle, and everything that I work on fits into this because you have to go all the way to the left-hand side of anthropology for where it started, and all the way to the right side of what is it that you want. And then you look at the uppermost limit of economics, and you look at the bottom with mythogens and religions. The world wars are a gaping hole in the middle that keeps us from being able to make that transition, because when we look at the way things have been put together, everything is upside down and inside out. From this backwards perspective, a supposed final solution in Germany of eradicating 6 million Jews that somehow increased the census number of Jews worldwide justifies an actual final solution of eradicating the Palestinians, the Yemenis, Lebanese, Syrians, Iranians, Iraqis. And this is to create a greater Israel that somehow matches the borders of ancient Canaan. The Bible and the world wars are following the same formula, where the heroes have been made into villains, the villains into heroes, the victims into perpetrators, and the perpetrators, the actual ones, into the victims. So this is something that we need to turn around, because otherwise good has been made into evil and evil is being portrayed as good. What we call Liberation Day should live in infamy for the hell on earth that it started for the German people. Enslavement in other countries, exile, confinement, starvation by design, and repeated rapes on a routine basis for women and girls. This is reposted from Neferhotep. The Morgenthau Plan for Germany became part of the Potsdam Agreement, a solemn declaration of policy and undertaking for action, signed by the United States of America, Great Britain, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Besides dividing Germany in a west and east part, in July and August 1945, the occupying armies took 25% of Germany's most fertile land and placed it under Russian and Polish control, forcibly expelling about 16 million people, according to British writer Victor Gollancz, with the very maximum of brutality. The Allies forbade emigration and kept millions of prisoners in forced labor camps. Some 4.16 Germans were forced to slave labor outside Germany. 6 million in Russia, 750,000 in France, 400,000 in Britain, and 10,000 in Belgium. From census data in the years immediately after the end of World War II, there were 5.7 million excess deaths for Germans. The hexing set cult. What I've realized in my research is that the same methodology has been used since 3000 before the Common Era, when the northern invaders usurped the role of the goddess and her temple, which was called the Paro or Pharaoh in ancient Egypt, replacing her with the cult of Set, also pronounced Seeth. Nomadic bands of men called the Habaru were given the right to rape, kill, pillage, and claim the virgins for themselves. In exchange, they obeyed the Hekakasut, the Aryan ruling caste who spoke for the male god Set. In the Torah, he becomes Yahweh, but the techniques of terror, taxation, and word tricks are the same. The occult hexing magic inverts the truth, because if you can trick someone into telling a lie, a demon snags their tongue. This formula from Egyptian demonology is useful for decoding. The word Holocaust is used as an accusation, while the true Holocaust was Dresden, and now we would add Lahaina, Pacific Palisades, and many others. The accusation of World War II is that the German National Socialists wanted Aryan supremacy and racial purity. The primary demands of Set and his later iteration as Yahweh is for racial purity through controlling women's sexuality and a patrilineal succession through the subservient maternal line. The ruling caste who wrote these mythologies were called Aryans. So decoding these lies is important for taking away their power, not because of magic, but because of manipulation. The war chest. We in the World War Truth movement know that the Germans were not initially against racial assimilation or intermarriage and welcomed the Ashkenazis from the Pale of Settlement in Russia, enabling them to amass great wealth and positions of power in Germany far beyond their representative numbers. Crow of Nevermore Media has published an excerpt from Neil Ferguson's The Ascent of Money. Like other propaganda, you can find the truth between the lies. He writes, according to one account dating from the 1830s, the Rothschilds owed their fortune to the possession of a mysterious Hebrew talisman that enabled Nathan Rothschild, the founder of the London House, to become the Leviathan of the money markets of Europe. And remember, Leviathan is a symbol of the goddess. Similar stories were being told in the Pale of Settlement, to which Russian Jews were confined as late as the 1890s. As we have seen, the Nazis preferred to attribute the rise of the Rothschilds to the manipulation of stock market news and other sharp practices. Such myths are current even today. According to Song Hongbing's best-selling book, Currency Wars, published in China in 2007, the Rothschilds continue to control the global monetary system through their alleged influence over the Federal Reserve System. When Nathan died in 1836, his personal fortune was equivalent to 62% of British national income, and I assume that's collective. Between 1818 and 1852, the combined capital of the 5 Rothschild houses, Frankfurt, London, Naples, Paris, and Vienna, rose from £1.8 million to £9.5 million. As early as 1825, their combined capital was 9 times greater than that of Baring Brothers and the Bank of France. By 1899, at £41 million, it exceeded the capital of the 5 biggest German joint stock banks put together. Increasingly, the firm became a multinational asset manager for the wealth of managers' extended family. As their numbers grew from generation to generation, familial unity was maintained by a combination of periodically revised contracts between the 5 houses and a high level of intermarriage between cousins or between uncles and nieces. Of 21 marriages involving descendants of Nathan's father, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, that were solemnized between 1824 and 1877, no fewer than 15 were between his direct descendants. In addition, the family's collective fidelity to the Jewish faith at a time when some other Jewish families were slipping into apostasy or mixed marriage strengthened their sense of common identity and purpose as the Caucasian royal family. And here Neil adds Jewish. The Rothschilds pushed Germany into the Great War entirely with loans, and this is my research, against the wishes of the German people. When Kaiser Wilhelm had effectively won the war and offered peace with no reparations, which maybe was an end run around the Rothschilds, it meant the Rothschilds would not be repaid. So Rothschild told England not to concede, and he would make sure the U.S. entered the war in exchange for Palestine. After the war, the Ashkenazis presented the Balfour Declaration at the Versailles peace talks, and the Germans knew they'd been betrayed. No document lays this out more clearly than Benjamin Friedman's 1961 speech on the Balfour Declaration. German resurgence. War reparations were designed to punish Germany for having offered England and France peace without them. Rothschild manipulated the Weimar inflation so the Ashkenazis could buy the remaining assets from desperate Germans for a pittance. The Golden 20 saw great decadence among the wealthy Ashkenazis, meaningless modernist art and architecture, and starvation among the Germans. After the devastation of Weimar, in a history that seems obfuscated, the reparations were somehow repudiated and the Rothschilds evicted. The economic plan of Gottfried Feder, similar to Ben Franklin's script and the American plan of the populist movement, was put into place, issuing sovereign money for each hour of labor. Germany thrived and resurged. I am still not clear if Hitler was instrumental to this success or if he was sent as an agent of the Rothschilds to sabotage it. I debate that in my episode on my Hitler journey. What the trial of David Irving made clear, however, is that Hitler was unaware of any plan to exterminate Jews. When pressed for a solution to the Jewish problem, he deflected by saying they'd deal with that after the war and talked about Madagascar as a destination. What was the problem with the Jews? There are hints between the lines of propaganda, even in Encyclopedia Britannica. I happened on the first Nuremberg laws, passed by Hitler and the National Socialist Party in 1935. In one, for the protection of German honor, Jews can't employ female domestic servants with German or kindred blood under the age of 45. This seems designed to prevent rape or seduction, as happened to Hitler's grandmother in a Jewish household. It doesn't seem the law was necessary for German employers. And the protection of German blood that describes mixed races as mongrels has inverted the truth. The Rothschilds practiced pure-blood Yahwism by marrying their first cousins or their niece. Yahweh hates intermarriage with lesser peoples. It's the greatest of sins and loses the right of inheritance to rule over everyone. The Germans saw those who assimilated and intermarried as less dangerous because they didn't act as if Germans and kindred races were lesser than themselves and free to exploit. The Rothschilds show the larger problem: cronyism, deception, fraud, extortion, and control over governments to enrich the Caucasian royal family, to which their hagiographer Ferguson adds Jewish. Mies Bejan uses the term glofia for global mafia, and that seems to describe the violence-backed debt system very well. The root of all evil. The problem from which all evil stems, however, is the ideology of superiority from the cult of Set. In another inversion, they turned the name into Satan and used it for anti-imperialist zealots who opposed the cult of Set. The real name of Satan was revealed to former Church of Satan member Michelangelo Aquino, who then founded the Temple of Set. He sports devil horn eyebrows with his highly decorated military intelligence uniform, specializing in psychological warfare. The cult of Set started with the largest division possible, making men superior to women, and using atrocity to destroy the goddess societies that had made the era before common all flourish. Adam put an end to that. Then the races were divided into 4 with Noah's sons: Shem, Japheth, Ham, and tiny little Canaan. The race of Shem was given rule over all the others, with descendants of Ham and Canaan to be their slaves. Fortunately, the other races didn't listen. Then the name Abraham combined Abdi Ashirta, the jackal preying on Canaanite cities, with the god Ra and the ruler Hammurabi. In his fantasies, all Arab nations answered to him and his chosen successor Isaac, who had been given a last-minute reprieve from being dedicated to Yahweh Set. His son Jacob the deceiver steals that inheritance and then changes his name to Israel, usurping historical ownership of this goddess people, combining Isis, Ra, and El into its name. The subjugated nation still paid no attention. In Luke 3, it gives the genealogy of Jesus through Joseph, tracing back 75 generations to Adam, son of God. These are all the chosen sons given the right to rule over the world, backed by Yahweh Set. According to this, Joseph is no peasant carpenter, but the divinely appointed high priest on the throne of David. For those who reject the obvious supremacy and violence of the Torah, but want to believe Jesus broke from that, Luke disagrees. And since there are no J's or vowels in Hebrew, the name Jesus is really Isis, another usurping of the goddess. And if each of those patriarchs ruled for 40 years, 75 generations would bring us back to 3000 before Common Era, exactly the time when those northern Aryan invaders took over the goddess rule in Egypt. If we want to change the trajectory of the present iteration of Israel, we need to know the truth about the world wars. And to do that, we need to understand the war on words and how they've made us give unconscious acquiescence to a twisted ideology of supremacy. To help with that, I have attached 25 videos to my Substack version at thirdparadigm.substack.com. Appropriately, the very first one I did was on the solution, which is forgiveness. The first step in forgiveness is taking away someone's power to do more harm, for their own sake as well as everyone else's. That's what my economic plan does for the Rothschilds. The second step is giving forward the benefit of the doubt by asking what would make you do the same in their shoes, and seeing the solution from their point of view. If the result of this spiritual experiment were so dramatic with the face of evil himself, surely nothing is impossible to Goddess. Undoing whole banking dynasties, taking back our homes, land, and labor, and especially the words. Welcome to the year of World War Truth. For more, here is a playlist on World War Truth, and this is one on Israel and Judaism. Welcome to the year of decoding the Patriarchs. Thank you for watching.